Hello everybody, I'm Chuck Gibson. Welcome to another edition of Tracking Evagoras Papasavvas Racing. And today we have Evagoras on the phone with a preview for this upcoming weekend on the home track, Mid-Ohio. So welcome Evagoras, it's good to have you with us, even if by phone.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be on. Thank you for having me on, Chuck.
Trust me, as always, Evagoras, it's my pleasure. A lot of excitement as you head to Mid-Ohio, which we all refer to as your home track. But this time, with the Formula Regional Americas Championship and the driver standings, you are heading to your home track with a pretty secure spot in the driver standings. Atop the charts, leading the way currently. So going to the home track, looking to hold on to that driver standing lead. And tell us a little bit about what's coming up at Mid-Ohio for you this weekend.
Yeah, so Mid-Ohio, a track that I'm very familiar with, and a track that I'm very excited to get racing on. This weekend, though, instead of having 3 races like we did at NOLA and at Road America, we only have 2 races, one on Saturday and one on Sunday. So a little bit shorter weekend, and I live a little bit closer to home here, so it's going to be a quicker weekend in general in terms of the travel for the event. Sure. But yeah, Thursday and Friday. Thursday, I believe, is still the normal testing days. Friday as well with practice, and then qualifying is on Saturday with a race on Saturday as well, and then Sunday we have our last race of the weekend. I was looking at some of the weather, and it looks like it might be there's a little bit of chance for rain on pretty much every day except for Saturday, so that's always going to be interesting to do that. With the rain, so definitely I'm going to be spending some time on the simulator, practicing Mid-Ohio in the rain to see, how it is. But yeah, so other than that, I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a good weekend.
Yeah, well, and again, I'm not the meteorologist, but I know what I've been hearing, similar to what you just said. It's kind of like chances of rain pretty much for the next several days, and through the weekend, but not, they like to use the word, not a complete washout. So, you might see a shower here or there. It might end up changing the way the schedule looks for you. But let me ask you this, a couple things. One, as you said, very excited to get back to Mid-Ohio, the home track for you. But not only that, coming off a hugely successful weekend at Road America. So let's just take a second going back to Road America. Obviously, that the last race there, the third race, didn't happen because of the rain in Wisconsin, and then you had but you collected a win while you were there at Wisconsin. We were hoping for a complete sweep there, but the rain kind of interfered with the last 2 races. Just picking up a win in the second race out of the 3, but. What do you recall about the success of the weekend at Wisconsin, and how does that carry over for you as you get on the track at Mid-Ohio this weekend?
Yeah, Road America, we had very good results, and we took the lead of the championship. So overall, it was a good weekend at Road America, despite not competing in the 3rd race because it was canceled.
Right.
But moving into Mid-Ohio, it just kind of adds another layer of pressure that I haven't really felt before, because this is like my first time going into an event being the championship leader. So, it adds that layer of pressure where, and you need to keep the championship lead, right? That's the idea is just to keep the lead for the rest of the season. But, racing is very unpredictable. Anything could happen. So, but still, nevertheless, it adds an extra layer of pressure to be able to perform.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that, I took note is Mid-Ohio's been a very good track for you. You've had success there. You've collected victories at, I'm not going to say each of the levels that you've raced at, because last year, racing in the Indy NXT series, that's the first time that you raced at Mid-Ohio and didn't take a P1. So my point is this, coming back to Mid-Ohio, so you're looking to get back to your winning ways on that home track. Anything that, like, lessons learned from last year with, and obviously it was a different car and a different racing series, but, different than the Formula Regional Americas. But any lessons you take from the finishes last year and that you carry over into racing at Mid-Ohio this year?
Yeah, I mean, last year being in Indy Next, being at such a high level, it kind of teaches a lot about maturity, and especially being around those drivers, it gives you a different level of maturity, and I think just bringing that into this season, just in general, not just for Mid-Ohio, but just throughout the season, has really helped me out, and has really, allowed for me to really extract the best out of myself and the best out of the car, every race, every session.
Outstanding. So very excited. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, like you said, Thursday you'll be at Mid-Ohio, and it's a typical Thursday testing. So like it says, I'm looking at the schedule, so I'm cheating again, Evagoras. I'm looking right at the schedule. So it looks as though, the Formula Regional Americas, you guys got the track at 5:25 p.m. our time, which is the same in Mid-Ohio as it is here. And it says optional test, and then likewise on Friday morning you'll have optional testing for the FRA Americas. Tell me a little bit about what's that process for you getting out there and testing, and will you go out for again it says optional, so will Crosslink Motorsports have you out there both on the Friday test option and the Thursday test option and the Friday test option, or how does that go?
Yes, I believe yes, we're going to be out both test sessions to just, they have that opportunity there for us, so we're going to take it. Right. We're going to get, take all our opportunities to get the most amount of experience, the most amount of time on the track to get ready for the race. As we've been doing for the entire season so far, so we'll definitely be taking those optional test days. But, it's kind of like, especially going to Mid-Ohio, first time in this car at Mid-Ohio, so just going to be learning about how this car handles at a track like this. So I'm very excited and curious to see how it's going to handle, and I'm looking forward to it. And that's pretty much what those test days are going to be for, to just get used to everything, get accustomed to everything, and then start to get familiar to see what you can change with the car, and what areas that you can push harder in and areas that you can't.
That makes perfect sense. And of course, then ultimately, you'll wrap up Friday with a practice session, which again, I'm cheating. I'm looking at the schedule. You may or may not know. So that's, you get on the track for a practice session at 5:50 p.m. So 10 minutes before 6, and that's just a 25-minute practice section, 5:50 to 6:15. And then Saturday, you guys are back on for a practice session at 11 a.m. and then of course the first race of the weekend. So what now, the practice session, how does that differ for you in terms of what you do during just like the test sessions? Or is it pretty much the same kind of thing when you're...
It's pretty much the same kind of thing, just it's named an official practice session instead of like an unofficial or an optional one. But really the biggest difference is just the amount of time that we have. We don't have as much time as we did in the test and practice. Right. So, but the goal is still pretty much the same, just to give those final few tweaks on the car before we head into qualifying.
Yeah, and then of course the qualifying is going to be at 11 a.m. on Saturday. So obviously looking forward to that. Let's go back. So you're going in with, obviously a great deal of momentum coming off of the success at Road America and taking the driver championship lead. And as you said, going into this weekend, looking to add to that lead, create even a greater gap between you and right now the driver that's chasing you, Cooper Shipman. What can you tell us about Cooper Shipman? And do you think about the other drivers specifically going into a race, or is it total focus on what you and your car are doing on the track?
Yeah, I don't really think much about the other drivers at all. It's all just kind of, because at that point when you start thinking about the other drivers, the competition, then you start putting unnecessary pressure on yourself, and it just ends up making your situation worse. So, you just focus on yourself and your car and your team, just to extract the most that you have. And, it basically it kind of dumbs down to the saying, just try your best, pretty much. So if you just put in your best effort, the team puts in their best effort, it's going to work out at the end. So that's pretty much the mindset going into each race weekend.
Well, that sounds pretty darn good. Anything else you want to share with us about your prep going into Mid-Ohio, or an insight to share with what we should be looking for? And I do want to, real quick, before you answer that, the second and final race of the weekend is going to be on Sunday, and we want to make sure fans, you can follow this live timing throughout the weekend on the Race Monitor app. So look up the Race Monitor app and you can follow the live timing. It's not the same as tuning into the television network and watching the race live, but you get a pretty good idea what's going on. So for the fans, they can follow on the Race Monitor app over the course of the weekend, and with the racing, live race on Saturday and the final race of the weekend on Sunday. And just for them, real quick, that final one is at 11:55 a.m. Sunday, and that first race on Saturday is 4:50 p.m. So that takes care of that. But again, anything else you want to offer some insight, or what race fans and what Evagoras Papasavvas fans should be looking for in particular, if anything?
So in terms of race prep, it's really just doing my normal, my reaction training, going to the gym every day, just getting prepared for the race, doing the time on the simulator, getting comfortable, getting accustomed to the track again as much as I can. But on a day like this, on Tuesday, when we leave on Wednesday to go to the track,
right,
this is all a different kind of preparation. It's all about, packing and getting everything set for the weekend, making sure I get, all my clothes ready and I get all my gear ready, make sure it's all clean and ready to go for the race weekend. And then also making sure I bring my energy gels. So before each session, I'll take an energy gel, which is kind of like what the runners, like what marathon runners take.
Right.
So it's very similar to that. So I'll take one of those before each session. So actually after this interview, I'm going to go over to Dick's Sporting Goods and go grab some. Today's that kind of day where I just get everything together, get everything in one place, and ready to go.
Well, now we need to get Dick's Sporting Goods to send a little money your way, because you gave them a real nice free plug there.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Because at the end of the day, that sponsorship's very important too. But hey, Evagoras, in terms of Mid-Ohio and your familiarity with it, we don't want to give any secrets away, but where are the passing places on that course for you in an FR America's race? Where do you look maybe for smooth run and an opportunity to position yourself to make a pass? If of course, I'm looking for you to take the pole position and then lead the whole race. But let's say that doesn't happen and you actually have to make a couple passes. Where are the best places that we should be paying attention, where you might be positioning yourself to make an important move during the race?
Yeah, so Mid-Ohio doesn't have as many passing opportunities as other tracks. Pretty much like most of the passing opportunities are in the first half of the track. Mm-hmm. The second half is pretty straightforward, just kind of single file. Not many passing opportunities there. It's really, you can make a pass going into turn 1 if you have enough momentum, and then same going into turn 2 and then into turn 4. You can get them on turn 5 as well, and same with 6. So it's really like 1 through 6 you can make a pass. But as you get from 1 through 6, they kind of get harder and harder to make a pass. But then after turn 6, it's pretty much single file. And it's pretty hard to make a pass, especially with the dirty air that these cars experience. It's really, if you're going to make a pass on the last lap, it's going to happen in the first half.
That's great insight. We know where to watch for the excitement. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So,
yep,
hey,
sure. Mid-Ohio is a great track if you're a spectator, it's a great track to go to and watch. They have great views of the track there. It's not just like sitting up on the stands and staying there the whole race, but you can move around for sure. The infield kind of shows everything, so it's a really good place to watch.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. Having been there to watch you race in the past, I would second that emotion. There's a lot of different places to find great views and to witness the great racing. It's a great, Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course is definitely a very fan-friendly race course to enjoy this kind of racing. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I can definitely attest to that. We chose several different places while covering, the Indy Next event last year. Good racing, great places to view it, like you said. So, Evagoras, thank you so much for taking the time and giving us a preview. I cannot wait to talk to you after the weekend, and you can fill us in on the latest and greatest victories in that FR America series for you, and hopefully continue to create some separation between you and the other drivers in those driver championship standings. So we absolutely wish you the very best of luck this weekend, certainly on race day Saturday and race day Sunday. For the listeners, again, they're going to have the testing Thursday, testing and practice on Friday, qualifying Saturday morning, and they will race. Race number 1 for FR Americas and Evagoras is going to be 4:50 p.m. on Saturday, and then they'll wrap the weekend up for the FR America Series with race number 2 at 11:55 a.m. on Sunday. One more time, Evagoras, thank you so much for taking the time to share some insights with us here on Loveland Beacon's Tracking Evagoras Papasavvas Racing.
Yeah, thank you. It's always a pleasure, and I really enjoy it.
And I'll talk to you next week, my friend. Have a great racing weekend.
All right, sounds good. Talk to you then.
All right, listeners, thank you too for joining us today here on Tracking Evagoras Papasavvas Racing. For now, that was Evagoras Papasavvas, and I'm Chuck Gibson. Thanks for listening.